Texas and this heat wave, specifically in Houston, those residents are really going through it. It says Texas hospitals are overwhelmed with people suffering from heat related illnesses. This wasn't as big of a problem 5 or 10 years ago. That's a quote from one of the doctors that's quoted in this story. Widespread power outages caused by Hurricane Beryl have sent a wave of patients to Houston area hospitals for treatment of heat related illnesses and carbon monoxide poisoning due to using home generators improperly, medical officials said on Friday. Hundreds of thousands of homes and businesses have been without power since Beryl swept ashore on Monday as a Category 1 hurricane. Although outages peaked at 2.7 million customers, and the Houston area's main utility, CenterPoint Energy, said it had restored power to about 1.4 million people by Friday morning, up to 500,000 others were expected to be without electricity into next week, with temperatures hovering around 90 degrees. Houston area hospitals have reported about twice the number of emergency room patients as they typically would. More than 320 patients suffer from heat related illnesses, about triple the norm at this time of year, triple the norm this time of year, according to Houston Office of Emergency Management. Dr. Ben Saldana, who oversees the 18 emergency rooms in the Houston Methodist Hospital System, said his ERs are treating their highest numbers of patients since the widespread power outages during the 2021 freeze when Ted Cruz up and bounced and went to Cancun, with heat exhaustion and heat-related problems the biggest reasons. I do want to let y'all know that I'm outside. That's the reason why you hear that aggressive bird chirping. He or she really has something to say. So some of the reasons they're going to the hospital, these range from cramps to heat stroke with body temperatures at 104 degrees, says Saldana. The heat also exacerbates chronic problems for people with lung, heart, and kidney disease, he said. Kidney patients are also coming in for dialysis because their regular centers are closed, as are patients who rely on oxygen tanks at home but don't have power. Beryl has been blamed for at least 9 deaths in the U.S., 11 others in the Caribbean. Most of the Texas power outages were caused by downed trees and branches toppling power lines. The heat and humidity have blanketed Houston, and the nation's fourth largest city, since Monday, have angered residents who are eager for a return to a sense of normalcy. City and state officials set up community cooling centers, but many affected residents have had no easy way to cool off, whether they are trying to tough it out at home or trying to clear debris from their property. Rain showers briefly cooled things off Thursday, but the National Weather Service issued a heat advisory for Friday with potentially dangerous conditions for those without air conditioning. Temperatures were expected to remain in the low 90s throughout the weekend. The Houston area has dealt with several major storms over the past 2 decades and the inevitable power outages that follow. As recently as May, storms deleted 8 people and left nearly 1 million customers in the dark. The frequent major storms have led many to invest in home generators, but those carry the risk of causing accidental carbon monoxide poisoning if they aren't used properly. A common mistake is to run one inside an attached garage or near an open window or an air conditioning vent, which can cause the odorless poisonous fumes to seep into the home undetected and kill. Houston emergency management officials have reported about 120 patients with carbon monoxide poisoning, which is rare except during long power outages. This wasn't as big of a problem 5 or 10 years ago, said Dr. David Percy, Houston's chief medical officer. Nim Kidd, chief of Texas Division of Emergency Management, urged residents to avoid what he called preventable deaths from accidental poisoning. If you are running a generator, please be sure it is far away from the area you're living and sleeping. Houston hospitals also face problems this week with discharging people who had damaged homes or now power. Officials set up a center at the sports complex near the NFL's near where the Houston Texans play, to hold some of them. More than 60 were there on Friday. At some hospitals, staff reported incidents of families trying to camp out in a patient's room if they had no power at home. That sort of crowding can create tension and conflicts with staff, Percy said. In one case, a man threw a chair at a nurse who wanted a family to leave. There are 4 or 5 family members visiting Uncle Dave, who just had his appendix removed or whatever, but they are staying 24 hours because their home doesn't have any power. So not only are you having to deal with the patient, but you're having to deal with the entire family. And this is what is going on when your legislators and all of these forced birthers are more conditioned to talk about a woman's body versus doing things that are for infrastructure and keeping the power going. So maybe they should shift and think about the infrastructure and keeping people alive instead of staying in women's uteruses. I started talking about Texas again today, even though I talked about it yesterday, because one of my Facebook friends is actually without power. She says, day 6 with no power. Houston sucks. Stop moving here. Can you imagine 6 days without power? That means every last bit of food that needed to be refrigerated is gone. That means that you are cooking in your own home. You're like slow roasting. That means that you have no cold water. That means that everybody is miserable. That means, like they said, everybody that might have, you know, everybody that might have something medical that needs to be connected to electrical outlet is SOL. How many people are dying because of this? And then somebody in the comments says, so sorry to hear that. I'm seeing reports that the linemen are there and that the city doesn't want to pay them. And in some cases, even asking them to pay for their own hotels and food. And she said, yep, the way our state officials have been handling this is extremely odd and not typical for how disasters usually are handled here. City officials trying to get to aid, and these gutter snipes that seem to always go on vacation right before these storms hit are blocking. And that is wild that these people keep getting hired back or keep getting voted back in despite how they are handling these things. And, you know, it's like I said, this is wild to me that folks will actually vote these folks in who are like really posing a threat to their physical safety in many different ways. The way they are not taking care of this infrastructure and this energy, despite the fact that these storms keep coming, and the way that Texas has decided to be off the grid versus the rest of the states where they just want to go it alone is really showing how well they are suited. You know, if they actually did secede and break off back from the United States, would they actually even survive as its own entity or landmass or whatever? I don't know. But this is very, very troubling. And just think about all of the different ways that people use electricity during the day to charge their phones, to communicate, to work, to eat, to have cold water, to keep cool. This is just dangerous. All right, y'all, jump in. Let me know what you think about this. Don't forget to like, comment, and share.